class, I hope you've all had a lovely weekend, and we are going to start today with our English learning. Now, we are continuing with our poem, The Lion and Albert, and hopefully you have all still got a copy of this. If not, I will post one below the video, but you do need this today, okay? So first things first, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and refresh your memory by reading the poem again, okay? So just re-jog your memory, read it all, and then once you've completed rereading it, press play again on the video, okay? Enjoy the poem. Hi, okay, welcome back. So hopefully you've re-jogged your memory and you've reread all of the poem just to refresh yourselves. And we've just remembered some of the key parts, okay? Now what we're going to think about is we're going to think about the speech that's actually used throughout the poem. Because when we look at some of the speech, it isn't accurately punctuated, okay? And we've done loads on punctuation. So we're not going to focus too much on the punctuation, but I do want you guys to include that in your writing today, even if in the poem it doesn't have it, okay? So what I have done on my poem is I have highlighted, or I've looked and underlined bits of speech by one character in particular, and my character I've chosen is Mrs. Ramsbottom. So I want you guys to do the same and have a look through the poem, and you can either highlight it, underline it, or if you've not been able to print it out, write it in your book. So just write down the bits of speech that Mrs. Ramsbottom says. Now don't forget, Mrs. Ramsbottom is referred to as mother as well in the poem. So anywhere where it says, then mother said, right's right, young fella, I think it's a shame and a sin for a lion to go and eat Albert and after we've paid to come in. That's what Mrs. Ramsbottom says. She is the mother. So you would highlight that or underline it or write it in your book, okay? It's pretty much only from here through to the bottom that you'll have speech. So pause the video and identify the speech, okay? Super. Okie dokie, well done. So hopefully you have found some really good speech from Mrs. Ramsbottom. And I have done exactly the same, and I've pulled some of that speech out of the poem and I've just put it up here. Now you can see I've added my inverted commas if they have been missed off here. Sometimes on here they look almost a little bit like apostrophes. You'll see this quite often as you start to develop your reading skills and you read more challenging books. Not always do they use the 66 and the 99. Sometimes they've just got the one instead of two of them. Bless me. So I have got three pieces of speech that Mrs. Ramsbottom says throughout the poem. So the first one, no, someone's got to be summoned. And thank you, sir, kindly. What? Waste all our lives raising children to feed ruddy lions? Not me. So you can see that those are three bits of speech that I've pulled word for word exactly as it is from the poem, okay? Now in the middle it says a key question, and it's really important that we pull this question apart to understand what it means before we just go ahead and answer it. So it says, what impression does this give you of Mrs. Ramsbottom? Now what does the word impression mean? When I say what impression does this give you? Well, it means basically how does it make you feel? So always think feelings around it, okay? Feelings and thoughts. Okay, so how does this make you feel or think about Mrs. Ramsbottom? So how do these bits of speech? So let's start with the first one. No, someone's got to be summoned. So what does that make you think about Mrs. Ramsbottom? Imagine we don't know anything else about her. So that personally makes me think that she's quite fierce and she's very stern with her decisions. So I'm going to put bullet points of these things, okay? So she is fierce. She is very stern, which means what she says is fact, and it goes, like you have to do it, okay? So she's very fierce, she's very stern. What else? No, someone's got to be summoned. What does that make us think? The word summoned isn't really great vocabulary. Someone's, it's a contraction, so she's quite informal. Maybe she's a bit lazy with her speech, yeah? Lazy with some of the things that she says. What else does that make us think about her? I'd like you to pause the video and think of one more thing to add to this. Okay, well done. So hopefully now you have got one thing extra for this, okay? So those feelings, this is our point and this is our evidence, but I'll show you that in a second, okay? Because we are basically identifying how a character's speech makes us feel, okay? Because we are the reader. Let's move on to this one. And thank you, sir, kindly. What does that make us feel? That actually doesn't sound very fierce, does it? It doesn't sound stern. It actually sounds the opposite of lazy, because she said, sir, kindly, and thank you. She's not said, oh, ta, or oh, thanks for that. She's been quite formal. So maybe it's a bit the opposite. So she's quite formal. She's kind. She's intelligent, maybe. Okay, have another think for one more. Pause the video. One more thing that this little bit, ignore the rest, just that bit makes you feel. Okay, super. Okay, well done. So hopefully you've got one more for that. Now, what I'd like you to do is look at this one. Now, remember, you are not looking at a few different ones. It's just one little bit of speech at a time, because that makes me feel completely differently about Mrs. Ramsbottom than the way this does, okay? What? Waste all of our lives raising children to feed ruddy lions? Not me. So now, 4 things that this makes you feel, okay? So bullet point, pause the video, 4 things, you can just have keywords like we've done here, 4 things that this makes you feel, okay? Off you go. Okie dokie, welcome back. So hopefully you've been able to think of 4 things. So my 4 things, what? Waste all of our lives, she's quite rude, yeah? And with rude, I would say obnoxious. I quite like the word obnoxious because it's quite, it's a word that you don't hear all the time, and it's a really good describing word for someone who doesn't take other people's considerations. It's just themselves. They're very abrupt, that sort of thing, okay? Also, the word ruddy is quite rude, isn't it? It's not very pleasant. So that's why I've included the word rude on there. What else have we got for our 2 other words? What? Waste all of our lives raising children. So she's asked a rhetorical question there. So I would say she is quite disappointed. And here, she's determined, isn't she? Not me. She's determined that actually no, the court and the police are wrong. It's not right that they're just offering her money. Okay, super. So then when we think about all of these, this is basically when we do point and evidence questions, and I say to you, right, you need to make a point and find the evidence. So our point is about Mrs. Ramsbottom, okay? So I would say, I'm just wondering if I roll it up a little bit. Yep, I can squeeze it on here. So we could say something like, Mrs. Ramsbottom is, and we've done this a couple of times before. Very obnoxious. Because she doesn't take into consideration others' ideas. Can you hear that pigeon? There's a pigeon that I think is on top of the roof, and it's very noisy. So Mrs. Ramsbottom is very obnoxious because she doesn't take into consideration others' ideas or other people's ideas, and then give me the evidence. And in the text, it says and then don't forget you've pulled it from the text, so you need a comma, then you need your quotation marks, then all of this would go in here. What? Waste, and so on. ... Okay, I'm not going to write it all because I struggle when it's that low down. But you can see there that I've got my point about a character with a bit of a description about what that point is, and then I've got the evidence, okay? So that's what you guys are going to do today. What I'd like you to do is have a go with one more piece of speech for Mrs. Ramsbottom as a bit of a practice, but then move on to Mr. Ramsbottom, because in here, Mr. Ramsbottom has got loads of speech, okay? And again, don't forget, it's not just the all-round opinion of that person. It's actually pulling a little bit of the text and what they say, and then what does that mean? Because this, remember, is completely different to what that told me, the impression that it gave me of Mrs. Ramsbottom. So do one more for Mrs. Ramsbottom, and then you're all going to have a go at Mr. Ramsbottom, okay? Enjoy. And I look forward to seeing how you get on with this, okay? It's a tricky skill, point and evidence, but we're going to smash it today. All right, well done.